Today in our Florida Fixer, I'm going to install this vinyl floor planking. This is where the floor was cut up to put in the plumbing. So Israel is here floating it out so that I'll have a nice surface to put on the luxury vinyl. We just brought home our load of flooring for the entire house. It's going to be a while before we need it all, but we didn't want to take the risk of doing half the house and then not being able to match it, because we want consistent flooring throughout, and sometimes the dialogues change. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's 30. That's half. Now let's see if I can move it after I strap it. Otherwise, I may have to cut it down to 20.
And use 3 carts.
Yeah. Ta-da! I'll start by showing you the most important step, setting up the layout. Chris chose this ashen oak from Style. It's a vinyl plank that has the backer already on it. It is rated at 12 millimeters of protection or high performance. So this is the highest level for quality performance in the residential flooring. The next step up, this is 12, the next step up is 13, and that's where you get into commercial performance. Obviously, we didn't need that in this house, and this was plenty. Now, what I don't quite understand is this is a 5 millimeter waterproof plank. How does it give you 12 millimeters of protection? It is very nice looking stuff. Chris chose this because where the Florida Fixer is, we're a mile from the beach, from the Gulf of Mexico. We're in Florida, white sands, turquoise waters, and we want the house to be, I should say, Chris wants the house to be tropical, coastal, beachy, but she doesn't want it kitschy. She doesn't want the pink and the flamingos and the turquoise. That's too heavy-handed. She is a real talented designer and knows how to work with colors and textures. And so she is putting this house together so that every aspect of it will point toward its tropical location, its beach location, without screaming, you know, pink flamingos. I've already completed the most important step, and that is the layout of the floor, where I'm going to start to put it down. We're going to do this flooring in 100% of the house, minus the 2 bathrooms. We went ahead and purchased enough to do the entire house, although at this point in time, we're doing the bedrooms, the hallway, and the closets back here, which is slightly less than 50% of the house. But we did not want to get this much done and then in 6 or 8 months, when we do the next part of the house, find out that we can't get this anymore, or the next dialot is different color. So we're gonna have to store quite a bit of this, but it'll be worth it in the long run. So let me show you the layout and how I got it. You see here this red line. You can also see a blue line. The blue line was my first strike through. And normally I'd probably have a lot more, but I used lasers on this job. I went ahead and set the laser back up. I'm done with it. But I'm using my cabinet laser, which is really designed to be on a pole and set the height of the countertops and level front to back, side to side. But it does have a 90-degree, and though it's not a tile or flooring laser like, say, the Bosch, I think it's the GTS3 and the GTS2, they are a little better because they'll put the point, an intersecting point right here, and I can't quite get that. I'm out there. So it makes it a little harder in the setup, but it still gives me the accuracy that I'm looking for. There's a red target, and the line is set right on that. And then I spun the target, put the target down on that end. You can see the line on the wall. That gives me a 90. This line here was figured out based on the rest of the house and measuring from walls to get where we needed to be there, and then down this hallway. So we're getting the same dimension and the walls aren't perfect, but I worked back and forth to get it close. And then the same thing here. And that's why there's a red line now when I had a blue line before. But I measured back from the far wall back to the line, and I'm getting 131 and a 16th. And then on this end of the room, I'm getting 131 and an 8th, so I'm only off by a 16th, well within tolerance. Here I'm 131 and an 8th, and again, that's from that wall and this wall, and again, 131 and an 8th. And then I'm 6 and an 8th, 6 and an 8th from this wall. But in here, this wall is further back by almost an inch, so I'm 7 inches here from this wall. And it's still parallel, it's just this wall is further that way by 1 inch. And then down on the far end, I am 7 inches. I was at, before with the blue line, I was at 7.5. So took a little adjustment to tighten it up. And what I did for my measuring, on the short end, I just grabbed my tape measure, of course. But in addition to using my laser, I have one of these digital measuring tapes. These are laser, not sonic, so these are very accurate. And I just put it right on the line after I struck the line. Actually, I had the laser at that time. And then if you can see the dot on the wall down there, hit that and it gives me my dimension. And so I just marched my way down the line and did this back and forth until I got it just right. And the reason this is important, I don't want to start and get all the way to where I'm going and find out that I'm an inch off from one side to the other, and then I have to have this taper that you really see. I don't expect walls to be perfect, but you can make slight adjustments if you figure it from the beginning and turn the floor slightly one way or the other and get the direction so that it works out. The goal here is not to make it perfect, but to make it look perfect. That's always the job of a finished carpenter, tile setter, flooring carpenter, anybody that's putting down finishes. It's to kind of focus on where you're going and take your time in the beginning. It's frustrating because you want to start throwing this stuff down, and I know it goes down fast, but it's important that, again, go to where you're going to finish and work your way backwards, and then you can make adjustments. And that's what I've done here. So now I've got this line. Now this line is a control line. My flooring isn't actually going to go on that line. I was really working more on parallel walls and square down the rest of the house just to figure out where everything was. Now I'm going to measure off of this line and give myself another line all the way through from that room to this room, because my intention here is to start by building out a 3 or 4 board buildup all the way from the guest bedroom wall straight through to this bedroom wall, the main bedroom. And once I have that done, that'll all be locked in a nice piece. Then I can slide it forward, and I need to then figure out how it's going to notch around to this tile here. And it doesn't really matter. That goes into the shower. That can just flow on in. And of course, I'll be notching around these as well. And then that side, that piece will be ripped narrower than these pieces on this side, again, because this is wider. And I've also did some calculations based on this being a 7-inch cover per plank all the way across, because I didn't want to end up with like a 1/2 inch or 1 inch piece on that end. So I've got it down to, I've got it so that it's going to be between 4 and 5 inches based on when I set this over. So I'm not going to have, if I had gotten a little narrow piece, then I would have shifted everything back this way and had the piece on this side grow a little bit. So, back and forth, but it worked out good with these dimensions. So in my planning, I figured out where I'm going to end so that I could come back to my starting point and then get this point that's going to go all the way through and connect these 2 rooms, rather than say starting in this room on this wall, coming out and maybe doing the same thing in the other room, coming out and hoping that I line up. Not gonna happen. This is gonna line up and then I'm gonna backfill that way. The other thing I'm going to do is these two rooms, I'm going to click the material together kind of backwards. I'll show you when I'm doing it. You can do it either way. I've tested it. This particular product goes together either direction just as easily, it seems. But because I have more going that way, then when I pick up this and do the balance in the future, then I'll be stacking it out in the standard direction that you drop under and click. Or actually over the top and click. I'm going to be going this way where I'll drop it under and click. So it might be slightly more difficult to assemble, but again, not that big of a deal, smaller amounts, and I've tested it both ways and I was able to put it together both ways. So again, I didn't just throw a bunch of material on the floor and start doing it and then scratching my head and go, oh, I should have done this, should have done that. I've planned and thought. Now, it doesn't mean I haven't missed something. I'll probably figure out a couple of things that, oh, I wish I'd have done that or this. But at least because of my experience, I've never installed vinyl planking before, except for the same stuff that I put a few square feet in the laundry closet about a month ago. And I didn't even think about it because we didn't know what we only bought enough for then, and we didn't know what we were going to do with the rest of the house. We were thinking about refinishing the concrete with this terrazzo, which would have been great, but it's not possible. And then we thought about doing a two-part epoxy, really kind of a beautiful finish. We had the estimate done and it was just over the moon price. And so because I'm doing this myself, I get the sweat equity. Typically with flooring of this price range, labor's about 50%, about as much as the material. When you get into the higher end materials, then the labor is a smaller percentage. But in this case, these vinyls are, they're not cheap. I mean, you can get cheap ones, but this higher quality ones, they're not inexpensive. They're good value though, based on what the other alternatives are. So a good quality vinyl, waterproof, good for putting down on concrete, be very durable, and look really good as well. So now I can put away the lasers and the digital tapes. I'm going to measure off of this line and give myself a control line. I might do a little calculation to see if I can get that control line to actually where the wood may start, but again, doesn't really matter. It's a control line. I can measure to it. So when I have my nice straight run and I'm trying to push it up and get it started with the wall on this side, then I can use a tape measure back to my control line and make sure that I'm getting the same measurement all along. But I do need a control line out this way because I'm going to be stacked up on this side and this line will be covered. Enough talk, let's have some fun and start putting down this flooring. I want to have a spacer against the wall so when I push, the material won't go tight to the drywall. I need a little expansion space, but I don't want it too far away because I want the base only to cover it. I've been trying to use some tricks like using the flooring because it happens to be the right thickness. I probably could have taken some scrap flooring from Rips if I have them later and do that. I took some 1/4 inch or 5mm material. I ripped it, but still too tall. I should probably rip it smaller. I'm trying to do things without the expensive tools, but I've installed many, many thousands of feet of hardwood, and I have these aluminum shims. I have about 50 of these, and they drop in between the wall and your flooring on the ends and on the sides, and you can dial them in and out. They're a great little setup. So I'm going to cheat now and use one of my professional tools. But really, you can come up with some kind of block or shim to put in against the wall. So when you push, you just don't want to go past because you'll be moving things around. And if you're not paying attention, then one board will be in tighter, or you won't, you'll be in too tight, no expansion. So best to have some kind of guide, some kind of block. This is the base we're using. It's a 4 1/4 OG base. And so you can see that it's plenty thick enough. If I have 5 millimeters away from the wall, this is going to cover it about double. The blue line is not only a control line, it's an actual line that the edge of the flooring is going to go to. I figured in this last piece how far it would need to go to touch the tile, and I realized that I needed to go 1 inch that way. So what I did was I measured 27 inches off the red line, and that gave me my 28 inches to put this blue line in and push the floor forward 1 inch. So when I go that direction and fit this to the wall, I'll be able to do my cut out for the drywall and have it go all the way in to the tile. I haven't done this before with this locking system, so I'm trying to figure out if it's better to lock in the ends or the long section first. So to come in and lock it long and go this way, or to lock it in on the ends and go this way. So I'm trying it both ways. And after I do a few, I'll figure out which way works best for me. I have this board sitting there across that doorway to remind me I want a full piece going across the door. I don't want a seam in the middle. I am finding that it's easier to put it in long ways and then snug it up on the butt end. This board here goes here, it'll be notched and go into the tile, it'll be notched on both sides. To do that, I'm going to line this one up on the previous board right to where it goes. So now I can just take a board, I've cut off that the underside of the tongue, just mark along my cuts here. If I just go tight to the drywall, it's fine because it can go under here, but some areas it can't. I'm actually going to make sure I put it against the drywall so it'll follow that. Then I'm going to use this pin. When I mark it, I'm going to make sure that I've got that 1/4 inch or 5 millimeters or whatever extra. Don't need a tape measure. The way that these are designed to go is I would actually hold this out a ways, and then there would be a little channel that goes in there, and then a piece of material that matches this that would overlap the two. I don't like that. I don't like those transitions. I'll use them as I have to. I figure I can always cut it out later if I have to, but I'm going to try to just butt this material up with just a little bit of a space so I can put some caulk in there, some gray caulk, just so there's some flex. And then I'm going to have to shim underneath. I'm going to glue some shims, and I'll go a little wide on both of these so that I can lift the material up. Just like I want more of a custom look and not some transition strip like you get in a mobile home. So I'm going to give myself, I'm going to call it 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to pretty much go these grout lines. And again, the board I'm cutting is lined up with the previous board, so this just gives me automatic alignment. Actually, what I think I'm going to do, because I don't know if the tile floats off one ear or another, so I'm going to actually make this tight and realize that I need to take an additional 1/8 of an inch. Again, the door jamb is coming here, so it's going to cover some of this. I'm going to give myself a little space there. Now back to the drywall, and then I'm going to give myself a little bit of extra there. Again, this is being covered by base molding, so it really doesn't matter that much. I'm just sticking with tracing the drywall in case it, wanders off one direction and another. It's kind of scribe fitting. Now I have this piece mapped out. I'm going to take this out to the Smart Station so I can use the miter saw and the table saw to make this. But you can see how, even though I'm going to extend this line to here, if you look at the tight line, it goes closer here than here. So this is just by using that and tracing it, it's just automatic. I don't need to measure and adjust for it. Describing the flooring around areas where it might seem kind of complicated is really pretty simple. The concept is not just for luxury vinyl. It's for any kind of hardwood or tile or really anything where you're taking material and fitting it around. All I've done is take my next piece of flooring. I've set it back so that it's flush on top of the other piece. That registers my layout. And then I've taken my little scribe tool, which is just simply a piece of the flooring. And now I can take it and go up to the surface that this material is going to be cut to and just make my marks. So if I start on the end and I go to my drywall, but I pull it back, you can't see this around the corner, but I'm giving myself the spacing from the wall that I need. And I could do that with a shim, but I'm just doing it visually here. It's just so there's expansion room and then the base will cover it in the future. And I can make this mark and just continue it. Again, I'm holding it back from this face here just to give me my expansion space. And that'll vary on your different products. They recommend 4 to 5 millimeters. So now I know to remove that. Come now to this where I'm going to step in even further, and I'm lined up with the drywall in this face, and I'm going to go out just a little bit to give me that spacing, and I'm going to pull it away just so I'm thinking about where I want it, and the door is going to sit on top of this. Point being is none of that matters to the scribe. Once you know your margins of setback and how much expansion room you need, the scribe will take care of the rest. So now I'll just come over and mark this. Now this scribe is wider than my board is going to be there. So now I'll slide it over. And again, I'm looking at the drywall on this side, and I want to be a little gap there between the drywall. So now I have that layout for this side. The other side doesn't, in this case, doesn't reach all the way to the other one. So that'll be the next piece. Now I'll just run out to the Smart Station and make these cuts. This one's a little more complicated because this wall is actually running at an angle. So this is not a 90. The whole wall is kicked out a little bit. So I've got to drop it back in, but then I've also got to cut just a little bit of an angle on it there just so that I stay tighter to the drywall. I could scribe these last two pieces, but I'm going to take them out to the table saw and rip them at the same time, save a trip out. I've got 5 inches to the wall there, and I have 5 inches there and 5 inches there. So there's no need to scribe. So I'm going to give myself that 5 millimeters or about 6.56. So I'm going to give myself about 1/4 inch. So since this is 5, I'm going to cut it to 4 3/4. And I've marked the side that I'm going to rip off with X's, and I've also marked the length down here with an X. So when I get out there, I won't have to think about which side did I need to keep. This is what I got finished up with the vinyl flooring today. So I got this section all the way through, connecting both bedrooms, so I don't have to worry about tying that together. I am to the bathroom. I'll be putting caulk, sanded grout caulk there. I got the main closet done. I backfilled into the linen closet. And then I ran up to the hallway here. Was also able to bring the tile with my about 3/16 of an inch there for expansion. Again, this will be a white sanded caulk, so it'll allow for expansion. And then out here I stopped, and this is where we're going to hold up and not go forward until after we remodel that side. So these couple of pieces may come out, and obviously I'll be dealing with the detail with the waterfall edge. I'm going to do what's left of this step down. We're getting rid of a lot of it, but what's left of it, we're going to put the vinyl floor on the face of that, and I'm going to come up with a detail to deal with the nosing. One row of flooring. One row of flooring. That's all I have left to do for this phase. Because of the layout and staying on the line, I am at 6 1/4 inches all the way across. So by making the minor adjustments, because the house is far from perfect, but by accounting for everything and spending a fair amount of time, probably 2 hours, doing the layout and figuring out where I'm going to start, where I'm going to end. Number one, I ended up with a parallel line, so I didn't have a wedge-shaped piece. And also, it's not a skinny little piece. It's 6 inches, 6 1/4. I'll make it 6 because of the setback from the wall. But what's interesting is this room, which is already completed, this was exactly the same size piece. So I ripped it to 6 inches, and I've got my spacing from the wall there that the base will cover, and it gives me my expansion. So by taking a little time and figuring out where I'm going to finish before I start, then when you get to the finish line, there are no surprises.